Thank you so much. All right, we're recording. So, today we're going to talk about salary negotiation and we're going to talk about what's going on in the tech industry with all these layoffs and how you can adapt your search and also how that, you can negotiate salary. So, with that, we will dive right in. Let me share my screen and then I'll talk a little bit about what we are doing. The whole screen. The whole screen. Do it. Okay. So, um, Katie introduced me. Largely, what we're talking about is salary negotiation. So, the agenda is largely about truth bombs and empowerment, saying no. What are the tools and resources you have available, and how do you play your hand, and when do you play that hand? It's not just what to say, it's also like when you say it, and who you say it to, and how you pit companies against each other, the same way that they do to candidates. So, um, uh, you know, I did want to just jump for a second into trueup.io/layoffs. This is a pretty good tracker for kind of what's been going on in the tech industry. So, one thing that should be encouraging is, yeah, last year we had a whole lot of open tech jobs and then a whole lot of people lost their jobs. And suddenly we went down to not as many tech jobs open. But as you can see, actually, we've hit kind of the bottom of the fall of the crash. And because we've sort of flatlined, that's when we're going to start to see the curve start to recover, basically. A lot of people got sort of dumped onto the job market, I think largely because big companies want the most senior of those people to found companies based on AI because there's a major disruption cycle happening. So some of this is like literally strategic and from like big companies coordinating together to do this kind of thing so that there's a startup ecosystem. Um, it does suck and it has driven down wages, like for real. And it has made searching for a job harder. That said, there's, quite a few open tech jobs still. And this like trueup.io still has a whole lot of like who's still hiring. Um, so they have like a list of the layoffs, but they also have, a lot of people who are still hiring. And those numbers are based off of things that they search and like do research on themselves. But also, if you, they have a whole lot of information here, like when did they last do layoffs and things like that. So there's a lot of good information here. We're going to talk about using tools like this today. But I did want to just kind of show people that like there's an end in sight. We've hit the bottom and this number should go up sometime in the next, like over the summer I think it will start to rise. And then there's usually a dip in the fall, and then there's or not a dip in the fall, but like a dip right around like October, like Q4, and then we upswing again usually in Q1. So usually there's like a January hiring boom, and I predict that next year's January hiring boom will be pretty big because we'll have seen a bunch of AI startups start. So, and that doesn't mean you have to know AI to work at an AI startup. There's like the people who build the front end website for the AI startup. So, anyway, so hopefully that's a little bit encouraging. And if anyone has any questions, I did want to just encourage you to drop those questions here in the chat, and I'll be like popping over to check every once in a while. With that, if anybody doesn't have questions on that, we'll kind of get started on the truth bombs and the empowerment. So, one of the things that's important to know, here's me. I didn't go to college and I didn't go to high school. So that's like, you've heard things about my background. Like I started Hackbright Academy and I was the founder of all these other companies, but I'm self-taught. And so if you don't have a computer science background, like you can make it in the field. It's totally possible. And there's quite a few of us out there. It's actually more of us that don't have computer science degrees than there are people with computer science degrees. So don't worry. So let's talk about salary negotiation. A lot of people, I think, when they first get into the workforce, they work really, really hard, especially women, because we're like trained that, we got to really prove ourselves, right? And if we do that, if we prove ourselves one day, someone will recognize us having proved ourselves and then will reward us with money. But like, no, life is demanding without understanding, and no one's going to drag you up to get into the life where you belong. We know this from Ace of Base. Um, you know, but like you live under capitalism, right? And capitalism is a game theoretical, like adversarial relationship. And so a lot of people, they leave school and they go to work and they think they don't make quite that transition because school is not a capitalistic environment. We talk about capitalism in school, but we don't capitalism in school because it's school, right? And you wouldn't want to do that. But in the world, it like companies can feel like a school, and they give you that feeling like you're going to be kind of taken care of in the way that you are at school, but they aren't, and they won't because they are trying to make money and they don't want to just give it out for no reason. So um, this is the mindset shift that you have to accomplish first. If you're moralizing to yourself, I shouldn't ask for too much. I shouldn't ask for more money because I'm going to seem like a pain. Uh, you know, um, like, or I don't know if I really deserve more money. Like, you have to kind of abandon that and play the game that's being played, which is capitalism and not the way things should be, right? And so it's inherently competitive. It is a versus game. It is not co-op. Even though you're joining a company that's like a family and so on, it's a competitive system, and you and everyone else there are in a competition. Dollars are coercion points, and you need them, and your family needs them. So if you have a hard time arguing for you, your family needs these coercion points to get food and like keep a place to stay. So the big thing I think a lot of people need to affect is that this is not a collaborative discussion. Now, you need to make it feel like one, but this is not a collaborative discussion, right? And so women and underrepresented minorities tend to get less coercion points on average, largely because we feel like we've got to prove that we belong and thus be weirdly over accommodating. And it really gets in our heads, like, and I've seen this because I've taught at Girl Develop It for 12 years, because I started Hackbread Academy, like, I've seen, because I've been a computer science professor for all these years, like, I've seen this happen, and it doesn't happen to all of my students equally. It's a stochastic process, and it's statistical in nature, but statistically, this tends to be the case. And so you have to keep that in mind, that people will peg you to a dollar value related to how you present in the world, and that is unfortunate and the way things are. The other thing to keep in mind that I think a lot of people don't understand is because you're in this mindset of collaboration, and you should be for like building the software and all of that stuff in that mindset, but you don't get any coercion points for being accommodating, because accommodation is the opposite of coercion. And in capitalism, the game you're playing is coercion. I will not give you my labor unless you give me more of the value of it. And so you they're not going to say, well, since you were really nice during the negotiation process, we're actually going to raise your salary by $10,000 a year. That will never ever happen. So this is the mindset that we got to be in. Corporations are not people. I know that the law says that they're people, but that's bullshit, and we all know it. They're not people. I'm just gonna check the chat. Yep, yep. Okay, good. I'm glad y'all are giggling. They're not people. It's bullshit that we think that they are. But the thing is that people think that corporations are people when they think about the budget and they think about the amount of money that they're going to ask for, because you're talking to a person. You're talking to a person, so you think I'm talking to a person. I'm negotiating with a person who thinks about money in the way that I think about money, in amount of money that I get per month, in how do I like pay my single individual person budget, you know? And so your single individual person budget is your one person's worth of salary in a year. And so you imagine that the other person is thinking about that amount of money in terms of like their own budget. So if you say, I want $20,000 more, that person thinks about their own salary and how much $20,000 would mean to them. And they calculate, well, if I give this person $20,000, I'll get less in my raise. And none of that's true. It's an illusion born out of you are talking to a person. And so it seems like you're talking to, like you're negotiating with a person, but you're negotiating with a corporation. So let's look at this in terms of a human's budget. If you made 120K a year, that's $10,000 a month to a company. If you made 140, that's 11,666. Okay. So to a company this much a month is a rounding error. Like they don't even think in numbers that are like this size. They think in number of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. That's what the people who are allocating budgets are thinking about, right? But to you, it's 20 grand a year. And so, like, can we go up this much a month, company? Yes. Like, the reason being, if everyone got a raise, if everyone got a raise from 10K a month to 11.6, you would go from 250 to 291 a month. If a company can afford to burn 250K a month, they can afford to burn 291. The $40,000 is not going to make or break the company that can spend this much a month, because it's the difference between 3 million and 3.4. And most of the time they raise at much larger chunks, right? Most companies, they're getting 10 million, 20 million, 80 million, 100 million. So this is the budgetary difference to a company that's just raised $15 million, 3 million to 3.4 million. It's not significant to them, but it is to you. 20 grand? Who could use an extra 20 grand? I don't even have to check the chat. I know it's all of you. So, so managers are asking themselves, what is the lowest number that will keep this person happy for 18 to 24 months? They don't expect you to stick around longer than 24 months. They plan on you maybe not sticking around for 18 months. That was during the hottest hiring season. You might get 36 months out of people now, and that might be the mental expectation of change. But like, it's still going to be a short time. That's what they're asking themselves. They anticipate they'll have to give you a 5% raise at some point, but that's it. And so that's what they're asking themselves. And I have finite head count. Is this person worth the spot? They don't have this is another like illusion that I think a lot of people have, that managers have, I have 500 grand to hire a team. And so I could hire $500,000 devs, or I could hire 10 $50,000 devs. So I'm going to pick the devs that quote me the lowest number. That is not how any of that works. At a company, as a manager, you're given a team, usually handed one. You don't get to hire the whole team. And if you do, you're not given a budget, you're given a head count. And so that's the term. You've heard managers probably say this, head count. That's, you get to hire 3 people. You get to hire 5 people. The reason for this is because people who are software engineering managers are not trained to do equality stuff around salary properly, to where the company doesn't get sued. And they don't want people who are hiring to make the decision about who to hire based on the money, because most people don't know how to allocate a budget, and they don't know that 5 $100,000 devs or 4 or 10 $50,000 devs is not an equivalent value, and it's not an equivalent. You don't get twice as much out of the 10. So big companies know this, medium-sized companies know this, and they don't give managers a budget. They give them a head count. And so you are being asked I have finite head count, is this person worth the spot? And so they're not like, if you've gotten to the interview, they already think probably. And so, that's the thing. So when you say a salary number, you didn't say a salary number that was low enough that now they get to hire 2 people. There's no number you can say. You could say $10,000 and they could say, okay, that seems really low, but fine. They still only get the 1 spot. They don't get, now they get to hire 2 devs because you asked for $10,000 a year. So just to destroy these illusions that come out of the normal job search process that people get to through normal observation of data and could be forgiven to believe that this is not how it works. I just want to, let's see. Yeah. I haven't, like, why can't we all succeed? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, only negotiate once you get to the final round. And then yeah, we'll talk about internal promotions towards the end there. So they don't ask themselves which candidate is the cheapest. Nobody ever asks themselves that. No, they don't want the cheapest candidate because that person shows that they're not as confident in their earning potential and therefore capabilities as other people. They don't ever ask themselves, is this person really worth 140? I think they're only worth 120. Nobody is asking themselves that. Like the most junior devs who have the most like anxiety about their own earning potential might ask themselves that of you, but they're not in a position to hire you or even give an opinion on whether or not you should be hired. They also are not thinking, oh, well, this person pushed back on their offer. I don't know. That seems like it's going to be a lot. If it seems like that's what happened, that is not what happened. If it's because you pushed back on your offer and then you heard they went with another candidate, that candidate was already ranked higher than you in preference. They were waiting for that person's reply. And then if that person replies yes, then they go with that person because they were ranked higher than you in the first place. It is not because you negotiated. Sometimes you can negotiate and then later have an offer rescinded. And so you make the connection, it is because I negotiated. It's not. It's not because you negotiated. It's because they already had another candidate they wanted more, who said yes, who maybe had said maybe not, or who had given them a sense that they should at least have a second option. And they ended up going with the one that they had originally picked. That's what happened. Or they canceled the job, or like other things occurred, but it wasn't because you negotiated. The key is that you need to project power. Things that don't project power, and literally this is what we're talking about, your power signaling. I need less than most people. That doesn't make it seem like you're just like a badass commando running through the jungle. It doesn't. It makes it seem like you don't think you deserve as much as most people, or that you're okay not getting your needs met. And again, it doesn't project power in the negotiation process. I don't complain even when things are unfair. It does not project power. It doesn't make you more likable. It doesn't make it seem like you're going to be a better employee to work with. You don't have to be vitriolic. You don't have to say, this is bullshit and you guys are dumb. Like, don't say that. But hey, this is not what we discussed. Originally, you quoted me this, and now you're quoting me this, and I don't think that that's fair. And it also doesn't, it's in violation of California labor law. These are the complaints that you can legitimately give, and they project power. To not say them is to say, I don't have the power to push back against a thing that I know is unfair and you know is unfair. When you let somebody do something to you that is unfair, they now know that they are allowed to do things to you that are unfair. So I accommodate the needs of companies before I compensate myself. Well, I want to save y'all some money. I don't want to cost you too much. I don't want to do this or that. They know, everybody knows you're trying to get a job and therefore sell them on something. And so you don't have to pretend that there's no pretense. Like you're not at a party with friends, you know? There's a pretense. You are attempting to sell your labor for a fair compensation. And so, like, the needs of companies, again, not people, you, a person, therefore infinitely more deserving of having your needs met than a company, which is not a person, just to review. you know. So these are the signs. So these are the things you want to do. You want to project power. You got to know when to walk away. Just saying no. Just like listen to that Megan Trainor song, like no. So I don't know if we have the concept of breakout rooms. Let me actually just go through the chat and make sure that I'm getting the questions answered. Yeah, let's see. When transitioning to Eng manager from senior IC, do I have to take a pay cut to change into tech leadership? That's a great question. The most senior ICs often make more than many software engineering managers. You have to get into the C-suite of a startup in order to really make the bank. The point of becoming an engineering manager is so that you can found a company and run a technical team so that you can make your money there. So you often will end up somewhere in the continuum, depending on your metropolitan area, of 120 to 250. If you're at a large company like Google, it can be higher, of course, but management is not necessarily the only promotion path. Like you can go architect, principal, staff engineer. These are almost management positions, but your job is also to do highly technical project management and like get really deep into the weeds. And if you can do something like go branch off into machine learning or AI, then you can really improve. If what you want is cash, you want to go climb the technical IC ladder. If you want equity and the ability to found, then you want to go management track. And equity can be more cash, but it's dice rolling. It's a lot of dice rolling. So often you will have to take, I don't know if you have to take a pay cut. It really depends on where you're coming from and where you're going to. You can take a pay cut and it would be normal to do so, but you don't have to. Because it depends. Let's see. Yeah. Internal promotions and how managers look at current salary to determine what they will offer. Yes. So the most I have ever seen on a promotion or anything like that is 20%. That's pretty much the cap because it would cost 30% to hire and onboard a new person at a similar rate. So it doesn't make financial sense to give somebody more than a 20% raise. And it doesn't make financial sense to give somebody more than a 20% raise in a 4-year period. So that's why you see caps on 5% raises. Over a 4-year period, you would get a 20% raise. You can get a 20% raise all at once, but then you tend not to get another raise for like a year. And the next raise that you get is like 1% or 2%. Over 4 years, you can get 1 to 4 extra percents on your resume or on your thing by going for that 20 and then getting small interstitial raises. So that's a good way to think about it. But yeah, I've never seen anyone get more than 20%. And I think that's the hard limit, literally because of the financial math, especially because we're in a bear market. Bear swipes down. So it's, that because there's a lot of talent in the marketplace, pushing on more than 20% is going to be like a Herculean effort. You would have had to have been high school best friends with the founder to get that kind of anything more than that. So, and a lot of times you see that, and it's high school best friends with the founder and stuff like that. So, I normally get an outside offer and make the current employer beat it. That will work. It's capitalism. Feel 0% loyalty to these people. They will tell you that there's going to be no layoffs until the day they lay you off. So, like, don't be. I'm not saying like company loyalty isn't important for your job, but when you're talking about you versus the company, which is anytime there's money involved or contracts or labor disputes or anything like that, you're no longer friends who are need to be loyal to each other. They're not like the king, that you've sworn your oath of fealty to, and like, they're not. They're just like some people with money, and they're you have a contract with them, and you sold them a year's contract. That's what a salary really is you've sold a years of labor, and so it's, yeah. Fearless salary negotiations is a great resource. And let's see, at least match the previous salary. Let's see. I was laid off and I'm really nervous about whether I'll find something comparable. Yeah, it's really hard to say no. It is about the trade-off. It is about the trade-off between can my runway and what I can do. So you're gonna see falling offers, and it's up to you whether or not you literally can afford to accept them. Um, there's still people paying like significant amounts of money. Like it's not like suddenly everyone's taking a 30 or 40% pay cut or anything like that. Like 5 and 10% is normal to see like offers, average starting offer go down. But you know, understanding what your deadlines are and what your like drop dead deadlines are, like once you have to take kind of whatever job, um, that will help because if you have 4 months before I have to take any job that comes along, then it's easier. But if it's 2 weeks, like, then it's harder. And so you can know when to make that trade-off, how. So a lot of it is make a burn down chart is what we call it um, in startups, but it's just your budget. How many months do I have? Other thing that you is like freelance work will help extend your runway so that you can hold firm and say no. So if there's anything that you can do, like splitting some of your job search between job search and finding freelance work, that'll help to hold on to that confidence. And then you don't have to tell a recruiter how much they're currently earning, or you're currently earning. And they say, well, we just need to put something in there. And you can just say, well, just put the largest number that you can put in there. And they say, well, really just need this for our data. And you just kind of go, okay, well, I'm not able to give that information to you. So that is unfortunate. And you can just stonewall them and it's fine. If they won't continue without a pay range to peg you to, just say the number that you want as your current pay range. They're not allowed in many states to even ask. And if like I think in California they can't even ask. And I think Washington, you're going to want to check these details. I think there's actually in the salary negotiation worksheet um this this article here, how much do others make for the same job? It has a bunch of other details about like who can ask for what. So definitely take a look at that link because it tells you like state by state what's going on. So yeah, um, definitely don't give that info out. Yeah, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, they're gonna give you the pressure. You can't avoid the pressure, you can just say, "Oh, yeah, unfortunately, I'm not gonna be able to do that." So, we don't have, like, breakout rooms in this as far as I know, so what I'm gonna do is ask you to say some things out loud, just because saying them out loud does matter. Um, like, hearing yourself say it out loud does matter, because the, like, parts of your brain that aren't the conscious words part have to hear stuff because they don't hear your brain, like, talking to you. So your ears need to hear you say stuff like, "No," or like, "I'm worth more than that," and so we're gonna just practice that kinda stuff. And then, yeah, the website is, here under, like, "Identify ranges of salary." There's, like, a link here. So, anyway, so what I want y'all to do is I want you to take your preferred salary range in your mind. Like, don't read this text. Take your preferred salary range in your mind. Let's get it into your brain, and then um, I want you to say that preferred salary range. And what I'll do here, I'll go ahead and stop sharing for a second so you can see my face. What I'll do is I'll give you a second, you know, think about that number, right? Um, and so I'll just say something, and then what you need to do is say no to this offer, right? So have your number in your mind, and then I'm gonna say, "Oh, I'm sorry. Well, what we are offering for this position is," and then I'm gonna say a number, and then I want you to literally, like, in your room, by yourself, just say, "Oh, unfortunately, yeah, that's not gonna meet my pay needs." Say it professionally. Say no. And then say, "Oh, yeah, I'm just in a different place in my career than that pay range." That's a condescending way. Say it lightly condescending. And you have to do this out loud for it to, like, work. Just say, "Oh, okay. Yeah, no, sorry, that's not, anywhere close to what I'm looking for." Just, like, laugh, like, literally, "Oh, okay." Like, laugh at the offer. Practice laughing because laughter releases tension in your nervous system, and it will help you to stay confident in that moment, but you gotta kinda work up to it. Say it professionally, then say it lightly condescendingly, and then laugh and say no. So, you've got it in your mind. Um, just out loud say the offer, say, "I'm looking for that number." Pretend you're on a call with me. Okay, so the position that we are hiring for, I think the, maximum that we are gonna be able to offer is $80,000 a year. Okay, now say no professionally. Okay. So the most we're gonna be able to offer for this is, 80,000 a year. Okay, now condescendingly say no. Okay, now you're gonna laugh. I don't know if y'all are doing this, but I hope you are. Yeah, you're probably see, it's hard. Like, even saying it out loud, you think you're gonna be all, "No, no, I'm not gonna do that. Sorry, that's just not enough for me." But then you're like, so I don't know if I can," you know? So, uh, I'm gonna just say a number that's really, really low. I want you to laugh at my offer. So we are looking for we're looking for senior software engineers, and we are going to be able to compensate you at $48,000 a year. Like, laugh, like, actually produce a laugh at that, right? Like, you know, it's really hard. Yeah, kept laughing. Yes, great, great, great. So those are like, absurd numbers. Like, even junior software engineers are pulling in north of 80 in many, many metropolitan areas. Like, there's like some places where it's a little lower, but most metropolitan areas, it's going to be much higher than 80. You want to aim for north of 100. Unless it's like your first job, you'll find some stuff lower, but yeah, it's hard. Um, Responding is so, you know, that was you. That was you being you. So now we're gonna do another activity, and now you are Michelle Rodriguez, and she flies helicopters and shoots the biggest guns, and she has no time for anyone's shit. So you're gonna code switch. Now, if you're used to being in largely feminine coded spaces, this is masculine code switching. You're switching into a more like, dude, you don't even know what kind of a badass I am. Like, you're switching into masculine code switching. I'm a badass. I could take you in a fight, probably. But I'm being nice right now and not even really talking about it. But I could definitely take you in a fight. Like, that's what you want to project. So I'm going to do the salary thing now, but you are Michelle Rodriguez. Be Michelle Rodriguez. What would she say? Right? So, this this position, we are going to be able to offer you 78 thousand a year, and then at 90 days we can take you up to 83,000 a year, based on your performance. How does that sound? How would Michelle Rodriguez respond? She could say, how would she respond? She'd go, okay, that seems really low for a senior software engineer. I don't know that I could take that. That'd be like her professional, like keeping it together, you know. And then, you'd say that again. You'd say something like, all right, well, we've got a position, and it's yours if you want it. We're happy to pay you 78 a year and take you up to 84 based on your performance at 90 days. So how does that sound? She would say, sounds like a really low offer. I don't know that I'd be able to take that offer. She'd grin knowingly. Yeah, uh, nothing. And then she would laugh. We have an offer for you that our recruiters have put together based on the market rate and a lot of data that we've compiled based on the market, really. And so we are able to offer you $78,000 a year with a bump up to 84,000 based on your performance. Michelle Rodriguez would go. Is that a real offer? That's really what you're coming at me with? Is say $84,000 a year? All right, I gotta go. Thanks for your time. She'd she'd laugh. So how was that? I mean, like, it's actually hard, but it's easier if you can pretend to be someone. Another good archetype I like, Maggie Smith, you know. She's Professor McGonagall in the franchise that shall not be named. And uh, you know, her code switching is a little different. She's not quite mask code switching. Like, she's really more like she's feminine, but she's got that professorial, like she's clearly got a lot going on that she's up to things. She's involved in things far above your pay grade or your head. She doesn't really have a lot of time for your nonsense. And a lot of the way that she responds is with silence. So if you're struggling to convey Michelle Rodriguez, and especially if you have a lot of experience, pauses and looks are really great for this. So, in the Maggie Smith archetype, I'll come up and say, well, yeah. So for this senior software engineering role, we are paying a competitive rate that is based on the current market of $75,000 a year. and with a 90-day performance bonus of up to $5,000. So that would be $80,000 a year based on how you perform, Maggie Smith would say. $80,000 a year. And she would pause. She would keep her face stony. And maybe she would go, like, I can't do it as well as she can, but like the single eyebrow raise. The silence is a lot. You know, and we're happy to offer a competitive compensation package of $75,000 a year for our senior developers, and a $5,000 bonus of performance at 90 days. Did you say $75,000 a year for a senior software engineering role? Well, I suppose this conversation is over. Thank you for your time. Like how offended was I at that? Like the amount of offended that I conveyed with 0 words, with my face and the pause. So these are things. Practice these things. Like Maggie's last thing would be like, you'd offer her some absurd money and she'd go, well, this was not as amusing as I am sure that you had hoped. Thanks for your time, or something like that, right? She'd explain she wasn't amused by your clear jest and need to leave. So practice these in the mirror. Like record yourself saying these things until you believe yourself, like until you can, as an actor, convince yourself. And so I really recommend make some like videos on your phone in the bathroom before you get on the phone with the recruiter, so that it's not the first time you tried to say, oh, I'm looking for 120 100 and like that, really actually like getting the shakes out of your vocal cords. Imagining that you're gonna skip the recruiter call and send them the video, right? Imagining that will help. So yeah, anyway. So the big thing about how to know when to walk away and when to run, like those numbers that I threw out there, are those good numbers or bad numbers? So you have to do your research, and you have to do it every time you do a search. There's no number that I can throw out that's correct or incorrect, right? Because of this graph changes all the time, and this happens a lot. Like about every 10 years, we have a crash like this because of a major disruptive innovation. And so this worksheet that I've sent out, and I'm just gonna drop it in the chat to make sure everyone definitely has it. Oh, you can't see my screen. Thank you for saying. I'll share again. So because of this graph, this is what really like causes salaries to change. There's more people, they'll offer a little bit less, salaries do go down. You don't have to take less money if you don't want to, but it really depends on how many offers you have and how much inflow you're seeing. So I'm going to talk about how to play multiple offers off of each other. During a market like this, it's going to be rarer that you're getting multiple offers at the same time, but I do want to go over it so that you've had a chance to talk it through. So, data is your negotiating power. These other companies are paying this much money for this work, and you are offering me 40% less. That's how you can say that stuff. But you do need to have info. The GDI Slack is a really great way to find out who's getting paid what at what company, because there's probably somebody in the GDI Slack that is at that company that knows what people are getting paid. So definitely back channel. These are great sources. I do recommend basically um, if you can go to Comparably is really great. Oh no, it's Comparably.com. No, and not Comparo.ly. Whatever. Anyway, Comparably.com. So they have salaries and all kinds of information. So if you select like your job engineering man 97233, that's Portland's. Let's look at those salaries. Here is an average. So like it's less than the US average, you know. In order to get more data, you just have to log in and they'll give you a lot of information. So you could also look at specific companies. So you can look at like HubSpot and you can look at their salaries. So jobs, I think it is. Compensation. And anyway, there's some salary data. And they also a lot of times have financials. And so they know like how many employees, what is their revenue. This information is very helpful during a salary negotiation process. If you're negotiating with HubSpot and you know they make $674 million a year, they're not spending all of that money, you know? Like, so, and here's their stock. So, like, knowing that information is important. That's what arms you. And so you can come to the table and say, well, this company or this other company is paying this much for the same work. And, you know, that's how you can come to the table. Coming to the table and saying, you know, last year I made this or things like that, they're not going to land as effectively. So I would realistically like it's largely about juggling multiple leads because the marketplace is so volatile right now that employers are like, yeah, 80K is market rate. And you can't, it's hard to argue because there are some jobs out there that are posted for that rate. So, you're not always going to be able to use information right now. Like, you can't use necessarily comparably to say, like, this is what software engineers are going for, just because there's a lot on the market. In about 12 months, that will probably be untrue. So, you may, if you're able to wait a few months, it's like selling when when the market's high or low, right? You don't really want to sell when the market's low unless you have to. So if you can hang out where you're at, hang out where you're at for 12 months. But let's talk a little bit about juggling multiple leads because this is a complex thing that I think a lot of people don't know how to do. So the thing that you have to understand about how to juggle multiple leads is you have to align a whole bunch of key moments during your job search. So that's why it's good to batch a bunch of applications so that you're within the time frame of all the companies at once, basically. You're like actually getting to compare multiple companies at the same time. If you're only applying to one job a day or like one job a week, you're unlikely to overlap. And so then you can't juggle or play them against each other. But anyway, let's go over the key moments. So the first thing is you want to be able to say you're in process with the maximum number of companies to any recruiter that you talk to. So, an invitation to a screen is the process. As soon as you get an email that invites you to tech screen with a company and you have scheduled that screen, that is the moment at which you enter the process. So, if a recruiter says, are you in process with any other companies? Anybody that you've gotten to at least the invitation to screen, you're in process with that company. So you could be in process with like 12 companies. And what that does is it makes you seem desired as a candidate. There's the screen, which is when a lot of times you peg a salary value. If you can avoid doing it at this moment, avoid it. If you have to give a number, give your preferred number, not what your current salary is. Just don't listen to them about what they need, because they're taking information to use against you. The moment when the interview is scheduled, like, this is going to be a funnel. Like, there'll be fewer of these, of course, than these. But the moment when the interview is scheduled, like, then you can say you're in interview if a recruiter asks. During the screen, that's when you reveal how many companies you're in process with. There's the interview. Um, like, during the interview, you're going to be asked about who else you're in process with. You want to name the biggest companies that have the deepest pockets. Those are the ones that will also give you the most social validation. There's going to be a recruiter check-in after the first interview. This is where you want to update them about how many companies you're in process with, so that they will force an abbreviated process rather than sort of keeping you floating. If you can, at this point, manage to convince the recruiter that there are other companies that are about to give you offers or have given you offers, you're far more likely to get an offer, because the recruiter will say, hey, do you like candidate X? She's in process with like Google and Facebook, so we really got to move on her. Like, that conversation has to happen if you tell them the right information. I know this because of how many people I've hired and how many times I've worked with the recruiting team. So you want to, at that moment, inject the number of people you're in process with. And if that's rising, that's good. But at this point, like, after the first few or the next few interviews, when you're in the negotiation phase, you want the number that you gave during the recruiter check-in to have fallen. You want to have eliminated companies by the negotiation phase. That say, yeah, I'm still in process with 2 or 3. I've eliminated quite a few. Like, say those words at that point. And so during the negotiation phase, you want to make things seem like they're drawing to a close, so that the recruiter is pressured to give you what you want, because you're clearly a socially validated candidate. There's a post-negotiation phase where you can then renegotiate your contract. So you can negotiate with the recruiter or whoever, and then you can get into the company and you can say, hey, the recruiter promised me one thing and then gave me another and made me believe that this job was this and now it's this. I'm fine with that, but I want to talk again about my compensation. So if you screw up the negotiation with the recruiter, finding a way to have a second negotiation is a thing that happens if you can bring it up with the person who is like the hiring manager that you don't have, like, that you have your new day-to-day relationship with. There's the day that you get hired. This is actually another moment for negotiation. Having been promised things in the negotiation process that you then, like, or in the interview process that you then did not get, or like were rescinded, at your hire date, when you find out that, oh, they don't have, an FSA or a 401k or something, and like the recruiter didn't convey properly to you, you are entitled to renegotiate at that time and say, hey, so when I took this offer, it was under the understanding that I would have 401k and 401k matching, and now you're saying that I don't. That's a value on my contract of about $10,000 a year. I was assured I would get this, and now I'm not being compensated at the level that you told me I would be compensated at. I need to talk about my contract with you. We need to make up for the shortfall in what was promised. At 30 days, you have a moment where you can possibly negotiate your contract, renegotiate. When you get into the job, it's never what was advertised. Sometimes you find yourself having to do stuff that you didn't think you were going to have to do. So at 30 days, at your 30-day check-in, say, hey, so This job is substantially different than what we discussed in the interview, which is fine. Like, I love working here in your organization. It's just that um, it's not what was advertised, and my compensation levels don't reflect the level of work that I'm doing. And then when I look at other details or data or something in the market, some external details, like it looks like I should be getting paid $10,000 more. So I want to talk about my contract. You can do this 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. Don't do it at each one. Like, don't do a renegotiation at every one of these phases. These are just the moments at which you can renegotiate. Most people don't know that they can renegotiate at their hire date, at 90 days, at 30 days. They don't know. If you're unsatisfied with your like hiring pay, and you think that after 90 days on the job they'll be so impressed that they will have to like give you a raise, you can say that in your negotiation process. Say, I want to have a compensation review at 90 days. I know that you have a market rate. I guess that my like resume is not communicating my skill, but I think at 90 days you're going to be prepared to radically rethink the compensation you're giving me based on my performance, because I've had that happen in the past. And you probably have had that happen in the past, but you know, like, you can say things like that at 90 days, or like at your hire date, you can say, I want a 90-day comp review. All of this is allowed. None of it makes you seem like a pain in the butt. So on the like juggling of multiple offers, you do like, you're in process from this point to like realistically till your hire date. And so you want to just stack as many people during this section of the negotiation process as you can. At this point, at 30 days out, you may still be able to take another offer that another company gave you. They may say, hey, this was an exploding offer. But if you email them and they had given you an offer, they may change their mind and take you. So at 30 days, you still have flexibility. 90 days, probably not. They've hired someone else. They've already allocated the budget. Like, it's, you know. So 90 days, that's, you should give me more money because I'm so impressive. And you have to have, like, justified it. So, you know, on this, it's a very manipulative process. And you have to think like a supervillain, you know. But that said, like, don't lie, you know. Don't say things that are just blatant falsehoods, other than, I would say, if they're asking you to give a salary number when they legally shouldn't, then lie. I don't care. You know, don't ever apologize, ever, during any negotiation or salary process. Like, you know, it's hard. It's hard to train yourself not to say sorry, but don't apologize. Don't make commitments on the spot. Yeah, that sounds like a great offer. When do we get started? Always defer. Always say, okay, great. I got to talk to my other people. Like, I got to talk to my family about it. It sounds great, but let me talk to my financial advisors. Don't talk about the makeup of your family. Never say that you have kids or a pet or a spouse, what gender that spouse is. Like, these are all mysteries, and they should remain mysteries until you've made friends at work, and that is it. It sucks, but don't ever talk about it. Do selectively reveal vague and crafted narratives, such as Maggie Smith will. Like, say only what you need to say. Say, unfortunately, I can't. I'm sorry, that's not going to work for me, is not as powerful as unfortunately, that will not work for me. I'm sorry it doesn't project power. Defer decision-making authority elsewhere. Sorry, I will have to talk to my financial advisors. You can say that you will have to talk to your family, but don't say my dad, my husband, my wife, anything like that. Just say, yeah, I got to talk to my family about it. This sounds great, but, you know, we make decisions as a family. This could be anyone. It could be you and your dog. Definitely speak optimistically. Yeah, this will be I'm really excited about it. But don't, you know, don't say yes. You do get as many tries at this as you want. Like, every time you look for a new job, You get to try again. So don't worry if like you say a thing when you shouldn't have said a thing and now you're gonna get 20K less. Yeah, I know. There's all this opportunity cost, but realistically you would have spent it on Uber Eats. No, I'm just kidding. But be the change you want to see in the world, but don't try to live in a world that doesn't exist. um yeah. So let me know if there's uh anything else that y'all wanted to chat about. I know we're kind of over time, but I'm just here to answer questions. Yeah, so 20% is pretty much the rule. Like you usually can't get more than a 20% raise no matter what you do. So yeah, it's a good like peg point. Like if they say, "Oh, it's $100,000 a year," yes, you can probably get 120. Can you get 140? You would have to argue for a title bump and say, "Hey, I'm senior. This position is for a mid-level dev. I know that usually, like, there's sort of a swing of about 20K, but or like a limit of that, but I'm really looking for something more in the band of a senior developer. Do you have a pay rate for a senior dev? And if so, like, do you have room at the top of the band of this thing?" Saying, "Do you have room at the top of the band?" I would expect higher compensation than this for somebody who has more experience than the posting required. Like, those are fine. And sometimes then you can get like 40K more, but you can usually only jump one level. Like unless you're applying to Google and it's like you applied for a software engineering job and they're like, "Oh, well, you're actually a software engineer 7." Then you can get giant swings, but these are the like Fang and the big companies that have the most high pay are the ones that have the weirdest like and most individually specific policies. Um, but yeah, so 20K is the general rule for most companies. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, my slides are here. Um, it's deck 44. Um, and yeah, don't forget to be Maggie Smith, or Michelle Rodriguez. Like either one, just take them in your mind to the interview. They will tell you what to do and say. Let's see. I just want to make sure. Did I miss anything else? What to do? Okay, what to do when you start the screening interview and the first expectation is about your salary expectation, and if you are overqualified, the recruiter just thanks you and ends the interview. Um, you should eliminate companies that aren't going to pay you what you need from the list of companies that you're considering working for. So if you tell them a number and they say, "Yeah, that's too much. Sorry, we've got to go," that's the correct result. It seems like, "Oh, I lost the opportunity. If I had just said $10,000 less, maybe then I'd still have the opportunity." No, they're not even in the range. If they're close, they'll try to talk you down. But if they're not close, like if they have 70K to spend a year on like a mid-level dev and you cannot afford to work for that, don't. And don't pretend that you can because it's not accurate. And they don't have the 140 to give you. That's correct that y'all shouldn't work. You're not a match. So don't try to force a match that's not a match. And compensation is a factor in matching. It's not the only factor, but it is why you're doing the thing. So, like, there's only so much that culture and like gym memberships can really make up for, right? When you counter, should you include why you are asking for more? Well, you need that money because you need it, and that is not negotiable. The fact that you need the money isn't, you can't really talk your way or like narrative your way out of it. So you can say, "I'm looking for," and that's the amount of justification that you need for your salary. Is that's what you're looking for. Be realistic, like in your expectations. like, peg them to reality, and that's why I say do the research, you know? It really does help to say to not in your mind think, "Oh, I'm gonna right out of boot camp make $150,000 a year in the next 2 weeks." Like, don't make that plan. Um, but have a number that you need, and then don't even entertain offers that are close but not quite what you need, because then you're not getting what you need. That's what that for sure 100% means. um is, so don't be, or yeah. So let's see. uh yeah, well, thanks for coming to my session, y'all. Y'all are sweet and nice, and I always love teaching with GDI. So do send me a link. Let me send you my LinkedIn. Drop me a connect on the LinkedIn, and I hope that was helpful. P&D opportunities. Oh, conferences. Yeah, learning and development stuff. Yeah, most companies will give you a learning and development budget. Ask, like, in the interview, okay, what's my learning and development budget? Um, if if you're working at a company that has new, like, if they're working in an area with AI or any of the new innovations, if there's any technology that's still on the Gartner hype cycle, then ask for a learning and development budget. Most companies will give you something in the neighborhood of 5K. Uh, you might not get to, and then it's like something that you submit to your manager. Can you buy me this course or send me to this conference, etc. Yeah. Um, yeah, I wouldn't go into details about your qualifications, because that's just surface area for them to say, well, we have somebody here who has more experience than that and they get paid this. So I don't know why you're complaining. Like, your needs are your needs, and they're independent of like your qualifications. A lot of times they're based around the size of your family, what metropolitan area you live in. These are not things that you can change. And so you becoming more qualified isn't going to, like, change your needs, and therefore you being less qualified will not change your needs, right? And so, like, there's what you can accept because you've put a certain amount of investment into your skill set. And if you qualify that to yourself, it can help when you are projecting that, but don't justify, because then you just open up space for somebody to go, well, I don't think that's justified at all, and it's nonsense, you know. Yeah, like, yeah, you're asking for, okay, well, what's your best offer? Okay, well, it doesn't seem like you have the money to pay me. um it happens, yeah. So cool. All right, well, thanks everyone. Feel free to shoot me an email. Yeah, 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 your worth is not negotiable. Like, you can componentize what it is, but it's not. All right. It was good to see y'all. Uh, drop me a line if you have any other questions. Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Oh, how do I? All right, there we go.